In this video, we are going to talk about components of government budget of economics of class 12th. I am Ankita Singh of University School of Management Studies. Let's start with the discussion. Let's first understand the meaning of budget. A budget, when simply stated, is a plan in numbers. It gives us the idea of our expenditures and revenue. The government budget is also same. It is a statement of expected expenditure of the government and the sources of financing these expenditure. And governments of all levels, central, state or local, prepare budget. In India, in the month of February, the Union government presents the budget in front of Lok Sabha, explaining an estimated receipt and expenses for the incoming fiscal year. The fiscal year starts from 1st April and concludes on 31st March of the next year. Objective of government budget. First is reallocation of resources. It helps us to distribute the resources keeping in view the social and economic advantages of the country. Let's say there are less developed states, particularly the northeast, so the center allocates special packages for the northeast states to help in their development. The factors that influence the allocation of resources are: first is allowances or tax concession. The government gives allowances and tax concession to manufacturers to encourage investments. We have seen that farmers sometimes are given tax concessions. Second is direct production of goods and services. When the private sector does not show any interest in particular industry, the government takes the production process directly. Second is minimize inequalities in income and wealth. In India, there are people living in below poverty line and the people who are billionaires or millionaires. So, the government aims to bring equality by imposing a tax on the elite class and spending extra on the well-being of the poor. Economic stability. The budget is also utilized to avoid business fluctuations to accomplish the aim of financial stability. Policies such as deficit budget during deflation and excess budget during inflation assist in balancing the prices in the economy. In simple words, we can say that there are ups and downs in the economic stability of the nation. The government provides measures to combat these. Next is manage public enterprises. We know that there are companies, public sector enterprises like Maharatna, Miniratna, Navratna. So, government takes care of these enterprises. The budget is planned to deliver different provisions for operating such business and imparting financial help. Economic growth. A country's economic growth is based on the rate of investment and saving. Therefore, the budgetary plan focuses on preparing adequate resources for investing in the public sector and raise the overall rate of investments and savings. Last is decrease regional differences. It aims to diminish regional inequalities by implementing taxation and expenditure policies and promoting the installation of production units in underdeveloped regions. Next slide. In this slide, we can say that government budget is divided into two parts: revenue budget and the capital budget. Revenue, what the term revenue means? Revenue means the sources of income, and the capital means when we acquire capital items like plant machinery or repay the loan taken for acquiring plant and machinery. Now the revenue budget is further classified into two parts, that is revenue receipt and the revenue expenditure. In simple terms, revenue receipts are the income sources for the government, and the revenue expenditures are those expenditures which are incurred to gain revenue. Revenue receipts are further classified into tax revenue and the non-tax revenue. And the tax revenue is divided into direct tax like the income tax and indirect tax, for example the GST. Here I have listed items of revenue budget and the capital budget. Items of receipt are income tax, profits and dividends. Government has share in companies which provide them profits and dividends, income from interest. Our government has invested a lot in many banks which gives them income. Last is non-tax income. Items of expenditure. Expenditure on government services like the providing free hospital facilities, police services, etc. Interest payments, grants. Subsidies. There are subsidies on various things like LPG. Common economic services, and the last is public expenditure. Next we come to capital budget. Items of receipt. Gross domestic loans, gross foreign loans, loan repayment, and the last is payment from public services. And the items of expenditure are formation of monetary assets, collected funds and the emergency funds. Revenue budget. It consists of revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. Revenue receipts are the receipts which do not have a direct impact on the assets and liabilities of the government. It consists of the money earned by the government through tax such as excise duty, income tax and the non-tax sources such as dividend income, profits, interest receipts. Revenue expenditure is the expenditure by the government which does not impact its assets or liabilities. For example, this includes salaries, interests, payments, pension and other administrative expenses. Capital budget. It includes the capital receipts and capital expenditure. Capital receipts indicate the receipts which lead to a decrease in assets or an increase in the liabilities of the government. It consists of money earned by selling assets or disinvestment such as shares of public enterprises. It is a case of decrease in assets, and the money received in the form of borrowings, which is an increase in liabilities or repayment of loans by the states. Capital expenditure is used to create assets or reduce liabilities. It consists of long-term investments by the government on creating assets such as roads and hospitals. In this case, it's a creation of assets, and the second is money given by the government in the form of loans to states or repayment of its borrowings. I have given a snapshot of budget 2021, and it states the capital receipts, revenue receipts and summation of these, which comes out to be total receipts, capital account details and the total expenditure, revenue receipts and fiscal deficits and the primary deficit. We will talk about them in later. Thank you, and that's all from my side.